we really wanted to share with you guys examples of people who are doing the extraordinary. So Nick has agreed to come onto today's session, and I'm going to be asking Nick questions. We're going to dive underneath how the changes that Nick has made in his business. So we're going to follow his incredible journey from where he was when we first started working together to where he is now. And within that, we are going to be covering things like how Nick transitioned and moved himself from being very operational in the tasks, in the day-to-day, in the trenches, to strategic leadership within his business. How he has developed a very, very high quality client base, but specifically moved his service offering from being what we call contingent to retained. And we're going to be talking in more depth about the premium consultancy projects that they now do, that is the lion's share of their business. How he's implemented a 4-day week and what difference that has made with his team, optimizing team structure, so moving away from that 360, also succession planning, as well as more than doubling his profits. So Nick, first of all, welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Katie. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Okay. Would you mind telling our wonderful audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Nice to meet you, everybody. So my name is Nick Eva. I'm managing director of a waste management recruitment company called Waste Recruit. It does exactly what it says on the tin. And we work throughout the environmental sector, mainly focusing on sustainability, waste management clients, bin men, and it's national, international, all over the world. We go where the waste is. And we started operating in 2003, and so we've seen a couple of down years and plenty of up years, and been working with Katie since 2018, both pre and post COVID. The good years where we used to get together quarterly and actually meet up with real people and run through proper training courses, but in-person training courses all over the place. We could have some beers together. To post-COVID online. So yeah, I've spent quite a bit of time working with Katie and Nikki, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it in the main.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, these were the days, everyone, where we used to have workshops, and Nikki and I would go into London every month, and we'd be running workshops with people. Yeah, we're in a different world now, aren't we? Brilliant. Okay, so Nick, let's go back to, if you like, the starting point, and if you wouldn't mind, tell the guys a little bit about where your business was at that point.
So we were doing okay. In terms of revenue, I thought we were doing all right. Profit, I thought we were doing all right. But I was in the business way too much. I was working too hard, and I think mindset-wise, I wasn't really focusing on the business 100%. I was in the business. I was still billing. I had people working for me, but we're working way too hard for the money that we were making. And whilst we were still profitable and doing okay, I was getting to the stage where I knew I needed some outside support, some coaching, so just to help me refocus the business. And actually, I didn't really know what I needed or I wanted. And then yeah, you kindly reached out, I think, in 2017, and we sort of kicked things off. But yeah, so we were working hard. I give you some numbers. We were doing 350, 400 vacancies a year. That's what we were working on. And we were filling about 20% of them. And so there was a huge amount of business there. And we didn't really understand why we weren't filling more vacancies. We haven't really dug into it. So yeah, I needed some support, and luckily found Katie.
Yeah. And at the time, I remember, because you were working, I think you said to me, you were really open and honest when we had a discussion. And I know we had more than one discussion, didn't we, before we started working together. And at the time, I can remember you saying, look, you know, my average fee is 14%. And, you know, we're working really, really hard. We're working contingent model. But yeah, there must be another way of doing this.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't do any search and selection. We were starting to get involved in some psychometric work with my brother, but we didn't really understand. I don't think really understood what we had at that point or how to market it either. And it felt like we were a bit sort of, wouldn't say fumbling in the dark. We were pretty good at what we did, and we understood our market, so we thought. But it was just way too broad, and the contingency model, the 360 model, just was killing us basically. Although we didn't really know it at the time until we sort of got into the course, and then I suppose you opened my eyes to a different way of operating, which was most useful, it has to be said.
So let's go back to one of the first changes that we made back there, because Nick's just alluded to the psychometric offering that they had at the time, and as he said, it was early doors. You hadn't really used that psychometric testing as such. Well, that's not fair. You'd done a couple, hadn't you? You were offering it to a couple of clients, but it was more sort of by default rather than
yeah, we didn't know how to market it, did we? We just didn't. We weren't really clear on why it was great. We knew it was good, but we didn't really know why it was good. We knew we had something, and this was really around the search and selection side. So instead of talking to clients about contingent recruitments, just doing the research, finding candidates and all that sort of stuff, my brother Ben, we decided we focused on just fixing the recruitment model for clients so that they weren't getting so much churn, they weren't getting turnover. And Ben was designing recruitment programs, but they were big and clunky, and we hadn't really figured out how to package it up and to market it. But we knew we had something, because we were getting 100% fill rates. Whenever we did a project, whenever we did a search and selection project, the clients were coming back and going, "This is fantastic. Why haven't we done this before?" Well, it just didn't exist in our world. And even just focusing on how to resource vacancies better, we just simply were fumbling a bit, even though we felt we were really, really good in our market. But the search and selection piece, sitting down with Nikki and Katie and running through, doing the business X-ray and understanding where we were making our money and why our selection process was going to be absolutely fantastic, and focusing on that a bit more. We can go into a bit more depth if you want about that, Katie.
Yeah, I think it would be great to talk about how you teased out how you, by lifting the lid on the business, how you then saw what that opportunity was, and then how you packaged that service offering.
Yeah, we didn't really understand where we made our money. We didn't even know really why our key clients were great clients. So we hadn't actually, doing the business X-ray, drilling down into vacancies and finding out what our fill rate was, how many CVs we were sending, why vacancies that we weren't filling weren't successful. We hadn't really got under the skin of it. And then we started digging into it. We suddenly understood that whenever we were working with a client on a sole agency basis, our fill rate was through the roof. We were filling 65-70% of the vacancies, where we were battling against other agencies and just, in a dogfight, we were filling a quarter of our vacancies, if not less. And so we were wasting huge amounts of time on vacancies that just simply weren't even worth looking at. And until we did the business X-ray, we sat back and went, "Oh, I can remember it." Coming back off the training course, having done this business X-ray, and we had to do a bit of data work and then I sat down with our database, the guy who built our database, and built a report that basically automated a lot of the data aggregation, so I could see very, very quickly in a spreadsheet where we were making our money. And as soon as I did that, it was like went back to the office and said, we've got to stop battling against other agencies. If we only work on sole agency vacancies, if we say no to more stuff, our fill rate's going to go up. And it was very difficult to get the team to really drop vacancies, because they could see money, but they couldn't really figure out why it was we weren't filling those vacancies. And when we actually sat down dug into it, you could see we were sending 10, 15 candidates. We knew, I started working out how much time we're spending per candidate. So you could work out you're wasting 6 hours on this vacancy because you've spoken to 30 people, 15 minutes of conversation, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden you're 6 hours in, you're sending candidates across and we're not getting anything out of the back end of it because we're battling against other agencies. If we can optimize that front end BD machine and get sole agency, why? Because we're very good at what we do. We understand the market. Oh, okay. So now we're starting to sell our vacancies better to our clients at the front end, and very slowly started to win over the consultants. And even then, we talk about gold jobs and avatar clients, new words. When I started going back and saying we're going to focus on gold jobs, what's a gold job, Nick? Well, what about this? Why aren't we thinking more about how we're approaching our clients and selling to them and getting that front end better so that we have got sole agency? But I didn't really understand how to do that. I sort of did, but didn't, just sharpen the pencil a bit on the marketing and all the rest of it. And then we had the search and selection piece. So that was really cool, because I came back from a training course having mapped out our selection process, really luckily with Nikki in London on a big A1 sheet. And it was, why is this good? Why is this good? What do you do here? Why do you do that? Then what happens? And we had it all of a sudden, after an hour, we had this A1 sheet we filled up with loads of post-it notes of our process from inception, from when I first start talking to a client about why we can fill this vacancy and how we can fill it, how we can build a recruitment process based on very sound psychometric processes, business psychology principles, how we can build it, how we can find the candidates. We've got a resourcer who can do this now. We've got a selection person who can do this. We can build your competency-based interviews. We can build a recruitment process for you that automates the testing of candidates for forklift truck drivers and plant operators. Really? You can do that? Oh yeah, I can do that. We can test them. We can build a situational judgment test. And all of a sudden, we've gone from contingency recruitment, fumbling about with a few search and selection projects, to almost 75% what we do is now sort of search and selection stuff, which I never really thought we could do. And some of our clients, they're muck and bullets, they're waste management people. They pick up rubbish for a living, they sort through rubbish. However, a lot, and we got really clear on who our key clients are, their owner managers. So I was able to pitch to them and say to them, I'm going to put more money in your pocket. Your business is worth 15 million quid. Yeah. Why are you having turnover in ops managers? I can reduce that by getting the selection piece right. So there's loads of candidates out there. Let's test them. Let's put them through a process. Let's do the recruitment for you. Yeah, you're a waste manager. I'm a recruiter. I'm a professional. I'm going to build a process for you. We're going to put these candidates through this process, and you're going to recruit the best person. And that person's going to put more money in your pocket because they're going to be better at ops management, sales management, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, our retention rates for candidates were going through the roof. So my sales pitch was 100% fill rate, and you were getting average retention rates of 3 years. It's unheard of. And sure, there's a few slip ups and trips and all that sort of stuff. But all of a sudden, we had this process where we knew sole agency. We're just going to focus on sole agency. We are not going to battle against other agencies. Forget about it. Forget about it. And of course, there are the odd vacancy here, there, and everywhere where we are. That's a loss leader. We won't work them hard. And all I'm doing is I'm using those to sell to the client and tell them what we want to do and how we're going to do it and what we can do for them in the future. And whether that's on a sole agency basis or actually sitting down with them and building a recruitment process for them. So we've really, from 2017, me being in the business, filling vacancies and all, running a 360, to now, all I do is sell. Talk to clients about why we're great and how we can fill their business, fill their vacancies. And I've got a team of resources sat behind me, and I've got a team of business psychologists sat behind me who do it.
And let's just talk about, because when you did the business X-ray, you could see that there was this contingent business And actually, I think at the time, if I recall rightly, and forgive me if I don't get the stats 100%, it was something like 30 to 40% fill rate of retained at one point, wasn't it? And then there was this big chunk that we could see that was still contingent. And some of them were sole contingent and some of them were contingent.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what that strategy was when you looked at those numbers and then you started to work out what you could have, what was possible if you moved everyone to retained, and then how you actually did that process in the 12 months in 2023.
Yeah, so I mean, and this is, it was a effect is, I suppose it's been a 4 to 5 year project. Forget about COVID that year, forget about that, but it's been a 4 or 5 year project. And so really early doors, looking at the numbers and saying, well, okay, in 2018, we worked 353 vacancies. I've got the numbers on the screen here. And we had a 24% fill rate, average fee 15%, and 95% of those jobs were contingency. And we had 5% where we actually did some search and selection. It was basically one client where we did a load of work for them. 80% of those vacancies, we were battling against other agencies. They were non-sole agency vacancies. So only 20% of those vacancies were sole agency. And all of a sudden, we started drilling down specifically into the vacancies and pulling the data apart and really getting into the numbers. And it took time. I mean, I like my numbers and I like my spreadsheets, but we had to physically go into, each vacancy and look at them and look at the number of candidates on the long list, look how many CVs we sent, how many conversations have we had, and have some really honest conversations internally and say, I mean, the question was, why are you wasting your time on this vacancy? Can we do something in a different way? And having a really honest conversation. My best guy, I mean, he's fantastic. He's an absolute animal. Now, I mean, he is talking to me and asking me if the vacancy is a gold vacancy, because he knows where he makes his money. And he's gone from working on, I mean, he was doing 50% of those vacancies and I was doing sort of, I don't know, I had another couple of consultants, but he was doing the majority of the vacancies and working like a dog, making really good money, but we're getting really frustrated in certain areas. He is now, in terms of his revenue, he's doubled it. So, which is, and that all I've done is I've just pulled hurdles out of his way and said, if you focus on these vacancies, it took 3 years of me telling him day in, day out. And slowly, he's turned into an absolute monster. And all he's doing is questioning and sole agency. Can't we run this as a project? Can't we do this as a selection project? Can't we get our business psychologists involved? Because that's even easier for him, because all he has to do is find the candidates, throw them to my brother, who tests them and then interviews them with the client. And it's really simple. And so we've been able to nail it right down. Anybody who's watched Moneyball, Brad Pitt baseball film, they talk about one number. What's the one magic number? And I was, after doing the business x-ray, it was really clear. Whenever we send between 8 and 10 CVs, we're getting 4 or 5, the really good vacancies, 4 or 5 interviews, 1 placement. It was really simple. 10, 5, 1. That's the number. And so the consultants know if how many CVs do they need to send? 10. That's it. How do we get to that number? How do we get to 10? How many conversations do you need to have? How many CVs do you need to find? How many matches do you need to do to get to 10? Because that's your magic number. And once we sort of figured that out, everything else sort of started to slot into place. And we could look at the contingency vacancies, the sole agency vacancies, and the sole agency vacancies, you could see it 10, 5, 1. The projects 10, 5, 1. The non-sole agency vacancies, there were either less candidates because another agency may or may not have found them, or there were just dozens and dozens. So you'd end up looking at a vacancy and say, why have you sent 20 CVs here? Because you don't know anything about the vacancy. You haven't actually drilled down into what they're looking for, why they're looking for the person. You haven't done that front end. You're just panicking and sending anything that will come through the door out. and it's nonsense. And so it was really clear. And as soon as they got that, really clear on that gold job.
So what you're talking about here is the criteria for your team to follow. So
Yeah.
what makes a job a gold job?
Yeah.
Setting that criteria, getting the team to understand that, getting them bought in on that. And you used a lot of evidence, didn't you, of you took the typical roles that were being filled as retainers and actually showing that some of those have been or could have been, you know, contingent sole roles. So actually, what was the difference? Yeah.
How do we flip? How do we flip certain vacancies? So how do we stop working multi-agency roles? How can we persuade the client to? So at that point, so it was like, get a call in. All right, we've got a vacancy. All right, I'll go out and see them. I'll go out and I'll set up a meeting. I'll go out and see them and talk to them. And all of a sudden, we were starting to flip some of those non-sole agency vacancies into sole agency. And it took a lot of hard work in terms of going out and seeing clients and persuading them. And there was some fee dropping, you know, give us it on a sole agency basis. I'll drop the fee a bit, you know, I'll drop it down to 16%, whatever it might be, to persuade them that we could fill it. Because we had great, when we were doing sole agency, and that became part of the sales pitch. How do you do that? Well, we know where we're going to find the candidates. This is why we're great. We're specialists in this particular market. Yeah. And I can talk to, you know, having conversations. And most recruiters tend to be a bit of a specialist in whatever it's. So a finance specialist, they, you know, they can have those conversations and spend a bit more time with the client talking to them. But additionally, there was the consultancy piece at the front end of getting to know the client. Many recruiters I find, you know, certainly if I'm throwing a raw recruit at a client saying, go get a job, go find a job, go take a really good job spec, yeah, and then go and fill it. And they don't know the questions to ask because they're simply not experienced enough. And so that was another side of it. I need to do that. I haven't got time. Get a resourcer. So the 360 model went out the window, and it's now me. All right, I'll go out and I'll do the BD. I'll go out and I'll talk to the client. I'll get the job spec. I will nail this down. You just concentrate on filling it. And naturally started doing, you know, into the 120 model. But we had to really clear, be really honest with ourselves as well, and say these are bullshit vacancies. Stop wasting your time on these nonsense vacancies. Make more money. Let's do this. And it sort of, yeah, it took 3 years of hard work.
So you moved yourself, and this goes back a little bit to talent dynamics as well, doesn't it? But, you know, Nick, you're in flow, your expertise is definitely out there with the clients, being that front person, negotiating on the contracts because, you know, the value of them, and you being that person. And then, as you're saying, looking at the structure and the model of your business and making sure you've got the right people behind you then to fill those vacancies. And to make sure that you get the candidates fast enough.
It was easy. It was easy to sit down and make the decision, insofar as saying, I'm just going to stop recruiting. Really? Not a chance. Would you? You know, we're all recruiters at heart, aren't we? You know, we love filling jobs. There's nothing better than finding somebody a job and closing it off. There isn't. You know, I've been doing this job since '96. I can remember my first placement. Remember who it was with. I can remember the candidate. I can remember the conversation. I know how it feels, and you never forget that for sure. However, I suddenly realised that actually one of my consultants is probably better at it than I am. So I stuck my ego in a box and put it to one side and said, I'll tell you what, you stop working these crap vacancies and I'll give you all of the ones that I'm working that are good. Because I know you're really good at resourcing. So I'll tell you what, you be my resourcer and I'll go out and find the vacancies. And some of the time we'll get Ben involved to do the business psychology piece. And we just morphed it. And so I would spend most of my time out on the road visiting clients, pre-COVID, obviously, go out to see sites, take photos, put together PowerPoints for candidates. And all of a sudden I was doing the stuff that I really enjoyed as well, which was talking to clients about rubbish and about processes and all that sort of stuff. And, visiting some fairly smelly sites and some very, very cool sites, and actually getting to know my clients a heck of a lot better. And it worked really well. And all of a sudden, my consultant's filling more vacancies because he's working on sole agency and some of the project stuff, some of the selection stuff that we were doing. And I wasn't anymore.
And also, there was another change you made, wasn't there, in terms of succession planning at that point, where you
So
got Ben more
yeah,
involved. Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, and all of a sudden it was, but I'm a good numbers boy. My brother's pretty decent. Now we're all fairly numbers orientated, but I suddenly realised from an operational perspective, if I'm out there doing the BD and doing some of the training and development, I'm not going to be able to do it all. So let's get Ben involved. He's my brother. You can see his mugshot on the website, and he's our business psychologist. And I started to get him involved in some of the operational side because it was, 10, 5, 1, 10, 5, 1. How do we get our consultants to really focus on that? All right, Ben, you start doing some work on that. And actually, developing our search and selection piece isn't necessarily just about me doing the front end. It's about how we can optimize our candidate journey as well. And that had nothing to do with the resources. I was finding candidates and having an initial chat to them, but our candidate journey was taking somebody through a recruitment process from A to B, and then managing them through that, giving them the interview questions, which we decided to do. So all of our interviews that we do, the candidates get the interviews up front so they can prepare for them. We know when they're lying. When we tell them that, you won't make stuff up because we can tell. So, give us proper answers and that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden, clients weren't having to make up interview questions, which is a blessing, to be honest, because some clients don't know how to interview properly. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Just, what's your biggest weakness? Good, excellent, great to hear. There's lots of stuff where we were helping clients. All of a sudden they were going, we've been having interesting conversations during this interview with this candidate about some really specific stuff that's relevant to our business. And by designing the interview questions around the vacancy, we can get in a bit more detail about that as well, but actually getting into what great actually looks like for a client at that moment in time. All of a sudden, the clients were having really interesting decisions and discussions with us to the point where we were working on, it was one particular vacancy just post-COVID, and we were doing the interviews via Teams, and we put an MD into a new business, and we'd already done some work with the client. It was for a county council and a commercial business that they bought. And this was during second lockdown, and we couldn't meet the candidates. The first time they met this candidate was when the bloke joined. And we were sat there going, who recruits a managing director without meeting them? So we did all 3 interviews via Teams, and they went, the process worked, we trust you, we've got the right person. And they did. But they met him on the first day when he joined. It was just, and it was at that moment I realized that, and this was after doing quite a lot of projects, but it was at that moment during lockdown when I suddenly realized we really, really had something. And there was another client, again, lockdown, and we were doing all the interviews via Teams. The client, she was based in the UK, but she had a house in France, and she got caught in France during the lockdown, so she had to stay there. So she started working in France. She's in northern France. Her ops person is in Manchester. The customer services person lives in Birmingham, and they're all based from home. We're doing interviews on Teams, and I remember it. They couldn't decide which candidate to take on, and she went, oh, we'll just take both of them on. They're both great, the salespeople. We'll just take both of them on. And I'm like, this is cool. I like this. Don't mind this. And again, we've done that about half a dozen times now, where the clients turn around, I can't make a decision on these salespeople. I'll take both of them. I trust you. I'll take them both on. And being able to give them really specific details, certainly the psychometrics helped, and the business psychology piece really, really works. But being able to tell somebody how smart somebody is, what a great fit they are for their business. But it's not a bullshit recruiter telling them, this campaign's great. They're really, really good. I can actually give you physical evidence that they're great. And then they turn out to be, and then 6 months in, you get some feedback. It's fantastic. really
Yeah, there's
weak.
definite power in that, isn't there? So the changes that you made were um, your role in the business, so moving you out from being that biller into
Yeah,
that business development
yeah,
person, making sure you had the right structures and people behind you, and
yeah,
looking within that about what is the model that I need, that's going to suit, our service offering for that. So making sure that that was in place. Upskilling some of those people, because like you say, you did have to take them on the journey, because not everyone was bought in initially around this. Oh, you can't just take any vacancy on that you like. We're going to be actually setting a criteria. There's going to be this, you call it your risk assessment, but the gold jobs criteria of what that is, and making sure that everyone's following that process. So some changes there, getting Ben on board, and he started doing more of the day-to-day management of people, didn't he?
yeah, yeah. He is, yeah, and just sort of just having conversation. And we're all remote now, so having Teams conversations with people isn't as good as having a conversation in person. But we know what we're doing, and having recruited the people using our process, we know that we've got the right people as well. And so when we are managing them and asking them, we can trust them to make the calls. We can trust them to be having the right conversations with candidates. And we can manage them through that process. And they love it because they've only got really one thing to do. That's pick up the phone and talk to candidates. That's it. Find them, talk to them, hand them over. Yeah, that's basically it.
So
But yeah,
what difference has it made for you, in terms of, where you were then, as you said, 300 odd vacancies, to where you are now?
yeah. I mean, I think it's not, um, I was in a pretty dark place pre-COVID. We had some conversations, and it wasn't great. We talk about running a recruitment business, but when you're driving in, going, this isn't fun anymore. But I've got to pay bills. We are good. There's something wrong. I don't know what it is. I can't fix it. I can't. All I can do is work harder and harder and harder to post-COVID, having been properly ill as well. If we hadn't made the changes, if I hadn't joined the course and I hadn't made the changes, the business would have gone under during COVID. As simple as that. Because I would have, because I was doing too much in the business pre the work that we did, it would have folded. So, that ability to be able to everybody work from home, we're very clear about who our clients are. We're very clear about our model. We can do this. Yeah. And we actually didn't need Nick. Nick had to step back because Nick could only work 3 hours a day because he was properly ill. Yeah. For 6 months. That was it, So, I would wake up at about 10, have a couple of calls, and then go back to bed because I was too tired. So that was it, March till September. So it was
Yeah, for the
very clear. Yeah,
context in that, Nick got that he had very severe COVID, so he was out of the business for
yeah,
6 months.
yeah. I suffered with long COVID as well. So yeah, vitamin B12 injections are not to be underestimated. They saved my life. But yeah, I have to say, Katie and Nikki, certainly during that period, because we made the changes and we continue to chat and have these Teams calls, it's not to be underestimated, the changes to the business. We didn't need Nick. We could carry on without Nick. The team said we could do it, and they did it. It was, yeah, I'm literally here because of the changes that we made. But yeah, putting that to one side, actually just getting the team focused. You're a resourcer. You're the best resourcer that you could potentially be. This is what you're really good at. I'll do the BD. You do this bit.
And so how many retainers are you doing now? What's the difference now in ratio of projects?
Yeah, let's have a look. So I was looking at the numbers earlier. Just so in 2018, we had 353 vacancies we worked on, 24% fill rate, average fee 15%. In 23, we worked 191 vacancies, 73% fill rate. And of that, we still did some perm vacancies. So where we were just where clients we not sole agency. We still had some, and we're still filling about 34%. So we're still doing them. We're still not filling them as well as we ought to, and we've still got work to do. Yeah, but the sole agency ones we're filling 67%, and the retained vacancies we're filling 100%. And so there's a few contract vacancies in that 191, but if I pull those out, we did 58 what I call perm vacancies, 63 sole agency vacancies. So we filled 34% of the perm vacancies, we filled 67% of the sole agency vacancies, 100% of the retained vacancies, and we had 56 retained vacancies. So we had virtually the same number of vacancy in each category, perm, sole, and retained. And the fill rates are really clear. 1/3 of the perm vacancies, 2/3 of the sole agency, near as damn it, and 100% of the retained vacancies. So it's really clear. The changes that we made are making a big difference. And revenue, and we talked about revenue before, didn't we, Katie? About increase in revenue. And I'm not really bothered about that. I was more interested in the process and optimizing what we were doing and how we were doing it. I knew that the revenue and the profit would follow. I wasn't too concerned about that. And I knew there was a process, a journey, and the outcome would be increased revenue, increased profit. And we've had a 60% increase in revenue from 2017.
Don't mind sharing, Nick, in terms of, because when we first met, you were 5 days a week, absolutely full on, and probably more at the weekend. Just share with people, how much do you do now?
My work-life balance is a heck of a lot better. I can take an afternoon to go and do something. I can take a morning to do something. So I'm working a lot less hours. I said to the gang before Christmas, I think we're going to move to a 4-day week. I'm going to bite the bullet. I won't reduce pay. I won't ask you to work 5 in 4. It will just be a 4-day week. And they love it. Yeah, I mean, and again, because we've got it on a sole agency basis, it doesn't matter. If it's retained, doesn't matter. The 4-day week doesn't matter. I split it out, so I've got cover on third. So we work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I've got half the team off on Thursday, half the team off on Friday. And actually the team, if I say I'm away next week in Holland, or I'm, last year we had how many holidays? I don't know. We were away about 5 times, but just seemed to
the business runs. Yeah.
That took a little bit of time to get used to. That took a lot of Katie going, Nick, just do it. Go on, I can't. I've got to manage everything. I'm a flipping. No, you're not. Don't worry about it. It'll be all right. Are you sure? I don't know. See what happens. Trust the process.
Trust the process.
But
brilliant.
Working with a coach and trusting a process, getting shouted at by Katie and Nikki, really, that's what it is. That's what I'll do it. But that's true, because sometimes you need somebody to say, why are you doing that? Ask why are you doing it that way? What if? It's it's an interesting one, so some of those calls, especially at that time with Nikki, when Nikki's just going, why'd you do that, why'd you do that, and an A1 sheet with all these little post-it notes. I've still got it. I'll never ever throw that away.
Yeah. Nick, thank you so much, sir, for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
Absolutely epic. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You continue to inspire me as well. So it's fantastic. I love working with you and Ben and the team. So thank you very, very much.